What if everything you thought you knew about Noah's Ark was just the tip of the iceberg? Imagine a flood so catastrophic, so world-altering, that it left ripples we can still trace in both scripture and stone. Waves of judgment and mercy, crashing together in the ultimate test of faith. Was it just a legend or a divine event etched into the very fabric of Earth's history? Countless stories describe the Ark as a simple children's tale, giraffes peeking over wooden rails, but the truth is both far more complex and infinitely more awe-inspiring. How did Noah build such a vessel without modern tools? Did animals truly gather from every corner of creation, drawn by something no eye could see? And what evidence lies hidden beneath layers of mud, rock, and ancient myth? Today, you'll discover the astonishing overlap between biblical detail and cutting-edge scientific discovery. Few people realize how the story of the Ark bridges two worlds, faith and reason, exposing secrets about origin, survival, and hope. Get ready to see beyond the rainbow and peer behind the storm. Keep watching to unveil the truth behind the Ark and why it matters more today than ever before. Step back, thousands of years into the dawn-lit shadows of ancient Mesopotamia. The air is heavy, electric with anticipation, as if the earth itself is holding its breath. Here, in the cradle of civilization, a story begins to take shape. Noah's Ark. Most dismiss it as a fable, colorful, simple, easy to box away. But the ancient text tells a story far more formidable, profound, and mysterious than any Sunday school mural. In the 600th year of Noah's life, all the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened. Genesis 7:11. These are not words chosen lightly. The language burns with cataclysm, both world-shattering and world-revealing. Genesis doesn't just recount a flood, it proclaims a reckoning, an intersection of divine justice and mercy on a scale the ancient world could barely comprehend. You might be wondering, why was judgment necessary in the first place? Why would a just creator unleash something so devastating upon his own creation? The text is brutally honest. The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth. Every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. Genesis 6:5. This isn't just about isolated sin, it's the collapse of moral order. Imagine a world where darkness isn't just in the corners, but saturates every moment, every intention. Yet right in the middle of this storm of corruption, a single light flickers. Noah, one man described as blameless among the people of his time. Genesis 6:9. The very structure of the narrative pivots on this almost impossible contrast. Amid absolute chaos, there is faithful obedience. That's the first paradox Genesis dares us to confront. Judgment and hope side by side. Many believe the Ark is merely a vessel of survival, but the profound truth is, it's a vessel of promise, a floating seed for a new beginning. But the details woven into the ancient language urge us to look closer. Noah is given precise instructions, dimensions, materials, and even specifications for ventilation and waterproofing. Make yourself an ark of cypress wood, make rooms in it, and coat it with pitch inside and out. This is how you are to build it. Genesis 6:14-16. Why such detail? Was this just mythological embroidery, or does it hint at something deeper, an event lodged in the collective memory, chronicled with the precision of an eyewitness? Now scan the horizon of history itself. The story of a world-engulfing flood and a single hero with a boat is uncannily echoed from the sands of Egypt to the mountains of Anatolia, from the Gilgamesh epic to forgotten tablets buried in desert ruins. Over 300 ancient cultures harbor flood traditions. Why? Is it mere coincidence? Or does the resonance suggest a memory, fragmented, refracted, but inescapable, of something that truly happened? You might be asking, didn't earlier flood legends predate Genesis? Could the biblical account merely be a copy, polished and reshaped for a new audience? Yet even here, another paradox emerges. The tale of Utnapishtim in the Epic of Gilgamesh is older on clay, yes, but the biblical account is shockingly distinct in tone and purpose. Compare them. Where Gilgamesh flounders in chaos, Genesis is purposeful, moral, and chillingly sober about human responsibility. The biblical flood isn't about appeasing capricious gods or surviving cosmic accident. It's an act of divine heartbreak, a judgment threaded through with sorrow, mercy, and, crucially, a fresh covenant. Imagine Noah standing with hands roughened by years of labor, beneath a sky rumbling with something more than thunder. The ark isn't just wood and pitch. It's a monument to obedience in the face of ridicule. The ancient rabbis wrote that Noah built the ark for over a century, day after day, plank after plank, as neighbors mocked and the world spun heedless toward doom. Can you feel the pressure, the rising tension, as plank turns to structure, as doubt turns to the threat of rain? This shows us something profound about the story. Noah's Ark isn't just an artifact of lost history, it's a cosmic hinge point. Every detail, every nail, every note of warning is charged with both disaster and deliverance. We see a God who weeps over a broken world, but who refuses to let hope be swept away by the floodwaters. But this raises an even deeper question, one that echoes through scripture and archaeology alike. What have scholars and scientists actually uncovered about the historicity of this flood and the ark itself? Did such an event leave traces we can find today, or does it remain hidden, shrouded in ancient text and shimmering legend? What you're about to discover in the next part may challenge everything you thought possible about miracles, faith, and history. The mystery is only just beginning. Picture the ark, not as a relic of splintered wood adrift on ancient waters, but as a living symbol, one of the most potent spiritual metaphors ever given to humanity. Why does the story of Noah's Ark pulse at the center of not only biblical history, but the very marrow of spiritual imagination across the ages? What if every plank, every storm-tossed wave, is a coded message speaking to the deepest needs and questions of the human soul? You might be wondering, what does it mean beneath the literal flood for us today? Why did God choose this method, water, destruction, rescue, to communicate with humanity? Dive with me beneath the surface, because hidden in these ancient waters is a pattern, a spiritual architecture that touches on the mystery at the core of existence itself. Let's begin at the heart. Divine judgment and mercy, locked arm in the Genesis flood. Many believe God's actions here are harsh, even unthinkable. But the profound truth is, this tension between justice and grace is woven through all spiritual experience. The flood isn't just an act of wrath, it's a painful surgery to save what is still healthy from a world poisoned by ceaseless violence. The Apostle Peter would later echo this, writing, "If God did not spare the ancient world when he brought the flood on its ungodly people, but protected Noah, a preacher of righteousness." 2 Peter 2:5. Imagine feeling the weight of divine grief mingled with relentless hope. The heartbreak of a creator who lovingly mourns the collapse of his creation, even as he prepares a way to rescue it. Now let's pause and feel the holy tension that crackles through the text. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Genesis 6:8. Here's a breathtaking shift. One spark of faithfulness ignites a new chapter for all of humanity. God isn't searching for perfection, but for surrender, not demanding heroes, but seeking those willing to listen and move against the tide. Noah's obedience becomes a rhythm, a silent sermon, echoing through the centuries. But it doesn't stop there. The ark itself becomes a metaphor of salvation, wooden walls reflecting a future cross, judgment overcome by radical mercy. You may have heard the phrase, "The ark is a type of Christ." But see how startling this connection really is. Noah is called to build the ark according to God's command. Humanity is invited, generation after generation, to enter a shelter not of our own making, but of divine design. Inside, rescued from judgment, Noah and his family become the seed of a new world. Just as much later, the waters of baptism will stand as a symbol, not of death, but of rebirth. Paul connects these dots in 1 Peter 3:20-21, declaring, "In it, only a few people, 8 in all, were saved through water, and this water symbolizes baptism that now saves you also." Can you feel that current? Judgment transformed into rescue, chaos into creation. You might ask, why water? Why not fire or famine or some other calamity? Water in the Bible is elemental chaos, the deep, swirling void out of which God speaks life in Genesis 1. But it's also renewal. The same flood that wipes the slate clean also carries the ark to a new mountain, a new beginning. Here we witness the paradox at the center of the spiritual journey. Death and life are intertwined, destruction and creation are bound together. But the spiritual resonance deepens further. Think of the ark as sanctuary, a single place of safety amid universal destruction. Does it not remind you of the ancient Holy of Holies, hidden within the tabernacle, a space set apart where God meets humanity? The ark floats, cradling a fragile remnant, just as the believer is cradled by faith when the world storms outside. As the rains fall, 40 days and 40 nights, echoing Israel's wilderness. Wanderings, Jesus' temptation in the desert, and the recurring pattern of trial leading to transformation. The ark becomes a microcosm of God's ultimate promise. I will never leave you nor forsake you. Deuteronomy 31:6, Hebrews 13:5. The storm rages, the world drowns. Inside there is prayer, waiting, hope. Picture Mrs. Noah, quiet tears falling, her children whispering prayers into the hush of that cavernous wooden belly. Outside, judgment, inside, covenant. The rainbow, when it comes, splits the sky not only as a sign of beauty, but as a vow. Never again will water destroy all flesh. I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth. Genesis 9:13. That rainbow forms the bridge between grief and glory, wrath and promise. And now, let's open the lens wider. What does this mean for us, for the spiritual descendants of Noah in our own time? The ark asks a terrible, beautiful question. When judgment comes, personal, societal, cosmic, where do we find shelter? When chaos rises, what is the source of our rescue? Are we living as builders of arks, places of refuge, of faithfulness, of mercy within our communities? Are we willing, like Noah, to endure the mockery of the world for the sake of obedience to a higher calling? This is not merely ancient history, but living challenge. This shows us something profound about the nature of faith. To step into the ark is to choose trust over cynicism, hope over despair, God's voice over the world's noise. The ark, in the narrative, becomes a living altar, a place where every board is an act of worship, every hammer stroke a prayer. Imagine the defiant hope of building something no one believes in, day after day, guided by a word spoken in the silence. Some scholars have even noted how the dimensions of the ark, 300 cubits long, 50 wide, 30 high, suggest not only a vessel, but a floating temple, echoing later measurements of holy space. The ark is not just an escape pod, it's a pointer to the divine pattern of redemption. God always provides a way of rescue before judgment falls. The invitation is always open. Enter in, find shelter, begin again. But this raises an even deeper question, one that cuts to the very core of the human spirit. If the ark is a shadow of a larger salvation, what does that mean for the possibility of a new world, one made whole from judgment's aftermath? Are we mere survivors, or are we co-creators called to build anew from the ground up? You might be restless now, sensing the next mystery just over the horizon. For if these spiritual truths resound through ancient text and echo in our souls, could they also speak to us in the patterns of the world we see today? Do the storms of our own age, global crises, personal chaos, offer us the chance to build arcs of another kind, to live out the meaning of this ancient voyage in modern times? And most provocatively, is there real evidence, traces on our planet, in our history, that the story of Noah is more than a metaphor? Prepare yourself, because what you will encounter in the next part will bring these truths down to earth in ways that might surprise you. The Ark's ancient tale is about to collide with the modern world, and the impact will shake the ground beneath your feet. Don't miss what's coming next. Take a deep breath. Let the ancient narrative draw you into our own time, our own storms. The Ark, once thought isolated in dusty scrolls, now looms at the horizon of our modern landscape. What if its story was never meant to sit still? What if every plank, every drop of rain is mirrored in the challenges we face daily, in the headlines we scroll, the disasters we endure, and the hope we crave when waters rise around us? Many believe that ancient stories are powerless in a digital world, mere ornaments for tradition's shelf. But the profound truth is that Noah's Ark is more relevant today than ever. A blueprint, a challenge, and a whisper of possibility if only we have the eyes to see and the courage to build. Consider the rising tide, literally. Our world is no stranger to floods. Hurricanes submerge entire cities, torrential rains turn streets into rivers, sea levels creep ever higher. Headlines flash, images stun, sections of Venice sinking beneath the Adriatic, the Mississippi swelling beyond its banks, Jakarta relocating its capital to escape engulfing waters. In every disaster, the echoes of ancient warning resound. Are we prepared? Have we built our arks, not just of wood, but of wisdom, compassion, and perseverance? You might be wondering, how does Noah's story speak to us here, in a world throbbing with climate anxiety and technological advancement? The answer is hidden in how we respond to crisis, individually and together. The Ark challenges us to ask, what am I building? Who am I sheltering? When the deluge comes, have I prepared my heart, my family, my community, not just to survive, but to rescue, to restore, to become a lifeboat for others? Let's sail into a real-world example, a scene as dramatic as anything in Genesis. In 2005, Hurricane Katrina blasted through the Gulf Coast, leaving devastation behind. But amid the chaos, stories surfaced. Neighbors forming human chains to rescue the stranded, churches opening sanctuaries for the homeless, strangers rowing boats through flooded streets to bring hope to the abandoned. When floodwaters rise, so does the possibility for mercy and courage. These spontaneous arcs, acts of decisive love, became the difference between life and death for thousands. Or look to the Netherlands, the Low Countries, where for centuries people have built literal arks, vast, intricate systems of dikes, levees, and barriers holding back the North Sea. When the waters threaten, every citizen has a role, every family a plan. Metaphor becomes reality as the nation embodies lessons as old as Genesis. Anticipate the storm, build your wall, protect your people. The community's survival depends on the faithfulness of each builder, just as Noah's did. But you might ask, what about our internal floods, the invisible storms no one can photograph, depression, addiction, financial collapse? The Ark speaks urgently to these too. Modern arcs become the support networks we construct, the honest conversations we risk, the lifelines we throw when others are drowning in silence, recovery groups, counseling sessions, even a single prayer offered across a kitchen table. They are as much arc as pitch and cypress, carrying us through deluge toward dawn. This shows us something profound about real faith. It refuses to be passive, content to watch from dry ground. The flood always comes, sometimes physical, sometimes spiritual, always demanding a response. Imagine feeling the weight of Noah's challenge re-threaded for our day. You cannot control the storm, but you can choose to build. You cannot eliminate chaos, but you can offer shelter, a space of hope above the swirling dark. Look, too, at the literal attempts to reconstruct Noah's Ark. In Kentucky, USA, the Ark encounter challenges visitors to walk the length and breadth of a life-sized Ark. Prosthetic, yes, but tactile, physical, an invitation to step into the shoes of those who trusted before the clouds broke. Across the world, Turkish explorers scour Mount Ararat, clutching ancient maps and modern tech in search of wood, fossil, or artifact, while their discoveries ignite both awe and controversy. They all point to a deeper longing, to connect the faith of the past with the evidence and urgency of the present. But perhaps the most striking modern arc is the global movement toward ecological responsibility. Faith communities inspired by Genesis' call not just to escape judgment, but to steward creation, join hands in reforestation, clean water efforts, and sustainable living. Their mission, to ensure the earth itself need not endure a second flood of neglect. They remember the covenant, not only for themselves, but for every living creature, for all generations to come. Genesis 9:12. Feel the resonance, school children planting trees, corporations investing in clean energy, families reducing waste and voting with their dollars for a healed planet. Each act, however small, is a plank in the modern arc, a statement of faith in action. But modern application isn't just about global headlines or technological marvels. It's in the quiet heroism of a parent staying up all night with a fevered child, a friend driving cross-country to offer comfort at a time of loss, a teacher risking her own reputation to stand up for a bullied student. Arcs are built in daily choices, invisible to the crowd, but essential to the survival of the human spirit. This shows us something profound about the shape of real rescue. The Ark isn't a one-time event locked in history. It's a living pattern available to us now. In every era, at every crisis point, the same possibility beckons: build, shelter, renew. The rainbow arches not only over the survivors of Genesis, but over every act of hope, every time we choose compassion when fear and judgment would be easier. But this realization sparks an even deeper question, the one that simmers beneath our technological sheen and cultural noise. In a world obsessed with evidence, can faith and science actually coexist? Does the pursuit of modern knowledge verify, challenge, or even deepen our connection with these ancient truths? Imagine what it could mean if scientific discoveries began to illuminate, not diminish, the significance of the Ark story. What if the sediments beneath our feet and the DNA in our veins still whisper that there was indeed a day when the world as we know it was forever changed? What if every act of rescue and renewal, every ark we build, is actually part of a larger story inscribed not just in scripture, but in the very fabric of reality? Stay with me, because in the next part we will voyage deeper still into the prophetic, the mysterious, the future implications of Noah's Ark. What does this ancient vessel tell us about where history is headed and about the storms yet to come? The answers will surprise you and might just change the way you see yourself, your world, and your destiny. Don't miss what's about to unfold. Prophecies are like thunder on a far horizon. You sense their approach before you see their lightning. And the story of Noah's Ark, far from being just ancient history or metaphor, rises again and again in prophetic echoes throughout Scripture, as if God is holding up a mirror to the future in the ripples of that ancient flood. What if Noah's Ark isn't merely a memory, but a warning, a promise, and a map for what is still to come? Many believe prophecy is a dusty roadmap, full of cryptic codes and fading relevance, but the profound truth is this: Noah's Ark shapes the very contours of how we're meant to watch, prepare, and hope as the story of humanity hurtles toward its own unknown climax. In the words of Jesus himself, recorded in Matthew 24:37-39, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. For in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking up to the day Noah entered the ark, and they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away." Hear the tremor behind those words. The ancient deluge is not locked in the past. It is a key to decoding the future. The days of Noah were marked by normalcy before the storm, routine, distraction, a world lulled into false security while judgment built on the horizon. You might be wondering, does our world right now mirror this same dangerous apathy? Are we, too, living in the long shadow before the next great storm? Prophetic scripture uses the ark as a deep watermark. The Apostle Peter draws this forward, writing, "By these waters also the world of that time was deluged and destroyed. By the same word the present heavens and earth are reserved for fire, being kept for the day of judgment and destruction of the ungodly." 2 Peter 3:6-7. Imagine feeling this tension. The flood behind us, fire before us, each a cosmic reset, each pushing humanity to reckon with its collective soul. Yet prophecy is never merely threat, it is always invitation. Even in Revelation's swirling visions, the heart of God aches to shelter and rescue. Just as the ark was provided before the flood, so Scripture insists there is a place of rescue, a promise that we do not have to face ultimate judgment alone. The open door of the ark foreshadows the open arms of Christ, who proclaims, "I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved." John 10:9. But it's more than individual salvation. The ark hints at a future where rescue is communal, cosmic, a renewal not just of souls, but of creation itself. Paul writes fervently in Romans 8:19-21 that creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed, that the creation itself will be liberated from its bondage to decay. The rainbow after the flood is not just a memory, it is a sign straining forward toward a day when the world will be made new, secured within an ark of eternal peace. You may ask, how do we prepare when prophecy assures us the future will again flood, not with water but with fire, turbulence, uncertainty? The answer, hidden in plain sight, is found in watching and building. Noah built his ark in the face of ridicule, preparing for what most considered impossible. Jesus calls his followers to live with that same prophetic edge, alert, courageous, ready to shelter the vulnerable, ready to risk everything for the promise of coming rescue. Let's bring this pattern into sharp focus. In every generation, there are Noahs, people called to build when the world sleeps, called to speak warning and hope. Think of those who have sounded alarms about injustice or disaster, missionaries, first responders, reformers, ordinary people who see what's coming and act. Like Noah, their lives feel out of sync with the era, but their obedience secures the future for others. But what if the ark means even more? Some interpreters see in the ark a prophetic foreshadowing of the gathering of the redeemed at the end of the age, drawn from every tribe and nation, preserved through the last great storm. Others see it as a vision for the church itself, called to be a space of safety, truth, and radical welcome in an era increasingly swept by waves of confusion and collapse. Scientists, too, face the Noah challenge. As technology accelerates, so does the potential for global crisis, pandemics, wars, extinction events. Many point to the concept of a digital ark, the storing of DNA, seeds, knowledge in vast vaults, safeguarding humanity's blueprint from disaster. These physical arks are evidence that deep down, our future-focused instinct is to prepare for cataclysm, to preserve hope in vaults of faith and science alike. But the prophetic call is not just to build for survival, but to build for transformation. Noah did not emerge from the ark into the world as it was, but into a renewed creation. The pattern is clear. After every storm, a new beginning. After every judgment, the possibility of new life. The rainbow is the ultimate prophecy, God's promise that mercy will have the last word. This shows us something profound about our own future. We are not fated to drift helplessly into chaos. We are called to alertness, faithfulness, and courage. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the hammering of new arks being built. Acts of faith in families who nurture compassion, in churches who welcome the exiled, in innovators who dare to prepare for tomorrow's perils. But this raises a question that pulses right at the heart of the prophetic. Will we recognize the signs before the flood breaks? Will we have the courage to act when the world scoffs, to build what the future needs before it arrives? Or will we be like those eating and drinking in Noah's day, ignoring the thunder until it's too late? You may sense the suspense mounting, because the ark's message refuses to sit quietly in the past. It presses us to consider not only our survival, but our purpose in the coming storm, to act as builders, heralds, and rescuers in a world teetering at the edge. What happens next is a convergence, past, present, and future, crashing together in both warning and hope. Prepare for what's coming, because in the next part, we journey from prophecy to prayer, from cosmic visions to the secret places where spiritual connection deepens and sustains. What if the next ark you build is not of wood, but of faith? And what if the greatest storm still lies ahead, not outside, but within? Stay with me, because the mystery deepens. Everything you're about to uncover will shift your understanding of what it means to survive, to hope, and to truly live. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the world submerged, sound muted, sunlight filtered through water, time slowed to a pulse. All that remains above the tide is the ark, a sanctuary carved from obedience and waiting, cradling beating hearts and whispered prayers. This ancient vessel on the waves is more than a lifeboat. It is a holy womb, a floating chapel where, for 40 days and nights, spiritual bonds are tested, deepened, and transformed. Many believe spiritual connection is forged only in serene temples and sunlit sanctuaries, but the profound truth is that the most powerful spiritual connections are often kindled in the confined spaces of crisis, when the rain pours and the world as we know it is unmade. Picture Noah's family, 8 souls, encircled by the roar of endless storm, cut off from the old world, yet drawn closer by shared faith and fragile hope. Can you feel the tension and relief, the anxiety of survival counterbalanced by the intimacy of covenant, story, and song? You might be wondering, how does this ancient waterlogged story illuminate our own longing for deeper spiritual connection? What secrets does the ark unveil for those who hunger for meaning in a chaotic age? The ark becomes our school, a vessel of preparation for a spiritual journey that stretches far beyond the horizon. Inside, every moment is marked by dependence on the unseen, windows sealed shut, navigation surrendered, every sunrise greeted as a miracle. At the center is trust, a relentless act of faith, not just in survival, but in the character of God. The text whispers that God himself remembered Noah, Genesis 8:1, a phrase loaded with compassion and attention. It isn't that God forgets, it's that he draws near, flooding the ark not with water, but with comfort, assurance, and presence. Imagine the nights, dark and uncertain, the ark creaking, the wind howling, stories of the past recounted by trembling voices, each word binding the family closer. The sharing of memories, fears, and visions becomes both anchor and sail. Spiritual connection grows in vulnerability, in shared questions. When will this end? Will we see dry land again? It is here, in prayers blurted at midnight and comfort offered through tearful embraces, that the covenant takes root. Out of chaos, genuine relationship is born, both with God and with each other. The ark teaches us holy patience. There is no rushing the journey. Noah waits weeks after the rains subside before even opening a window. He releases a raven, then a dove, watching, longing, perceiving the smallest changes. How often in our own lives do we resist the waiting, stretching toward future shores, wishing away the flood, yet missing the sacred depth unfolding in delay? The ark invites us to discover God in the waiting, to listen for the still, small voice in the midst of pounding rain. This shows us something profound about spiritual connection. It is forged in endurance, shaped by obedience and crowned by hope. The ark calls us to share our storms, to carry each other through the darkness, to rebuild trust in the one who promises never to leave or forsake us. You might ask, can we cultivate such connection in a world crowded with loneliness, scrolling screens, and fleeting digital ties? The ark's lesson is urgent. Step into the boat, close the door, share the confined sacred space with those given to you, family, community, fellow seekers. Let the flood outside draw you closer. Share prayers both doubting and bold. Tell your stories until the dawn. Real-world echoes of this drama abound. Think of communities rallying in disaster. Strangers become brothers and sisters as they sandbag riverside homes, light candles for the missing, provide shelter and song amid the blackout. In those moments, isolation is washed away, replaced by warmth, solidarity, and a glimpse of the divine within the ordinary. The ark lives again wherever adversity forges bonds deeper than comfort alone. But the ark also whispers of a more intimate spiritual connection still, one between each soul and its creator. In the dark, Noah listens. His faith is not the noisy faith of crowds, but the quiet faith of waiting, enduring, believing when miracles feel impossibly far off. Here prayer becomes breath, patience becomes song. You may remember Psalm 46:10, "Be still and know that I am God." The ark is the ultimate stillness, adrift and yet held, restless yet watched. This deepening is only possible because of covenant. At the journey's end, God establishes a rainbow in the sky, a spectrum of promise arched from horizon to horizon. Now, every storm finds its answer in this sign of commitment. Whenever the rainbow appears in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant. Genesis 9:16. God's memory and ours are joined. Trust becomes unbreakable. You might sense this pull. What could your relationships, your marriage, your friendships, your connection to God become if lived as within the ark? Every conflict and crisis, an invitation to more radical togetherness and relentless trust. Picture yourself as both Noah and family, builder and companion, vulnerable and needed. What would it mean to risk such intimacy when everything feels like storm? But here emerges a subtle, crucial paradox. Many believe spiritual connection is about escaping the flood, finding dry land as quickly as possible. The profound truth is that the ark is the blessing, not merely the exit. Connection happens because of, not in spite of, the waters, the darkness, the long nights of trial. We do not come to know God or one another most deeply in sunshine, but in storm, in survival, in singing together with nowhere else to go. This shows us something profound about the spiritual life. Connection is deepened, not destroyed, by challenge. Our truest bonds are formed not in the absence of danger, but in the courage to ride it out together, trusting in the whispered promises that echo through the thunder. Yet the ark's journey is not forever. The rains stop, the sun pierces the clouds, the door opens, but the souls who step out are not the same as those who stepped in. They are tempered by trial, burnished by trust, forever marked by the memory of covenant and survival. And yet, does the opening of the door mean the story is over, or is it just beginning again, remade on higher ground? The ark's true legacy is not the survival it provided, but the community, faith, and connection it made possible. What would it mean for you today to exit your own ark, a season of storm, a trial endured, and begin again with the ones you have come to know and trust on the foundation of that shared journey? But this raises an even deeper yearning. If spiritual connection is both gift and calling, how do we build and sustain it after the storm? What steps must we take to anchor covenant in calm as well as in flood? To practice, nurture, and share the depth we found in the ark, in the bright challenge of ordinary days? What you're about to discover in the next part will be the blueprint, the practical steps and age-old wisdom for cultivating enduring spiritual growth out of crisis and connection. Don't miss this, because your ark journey, your story of trust, hope, and community is ready to be built plank by plank, moment by moment, in the world that waits, longing for a rainbow after the storm. Can you feel it? The hush that arrives after the storm, when the rain finally ceases and the ark settles softly atop solid ground. This isn't just the end of Noah's ordeal, it's the beginning of something altogether new. The world outside is changed, but it's within the survivors themselves that the deepest, most lasting transformation has occurred. Spiritual growth never emerges out of nowhere. It is built plank by plank, in moments of trust, struggle, and obedience. The question now becomes, how do we too build and anchor our growth for days of flood and days of sunshine alike? Many believe that spiritual maturity is reserved for the rare, or that its steps are steep and hidden in mystery. But the profound truth is that the wisdom of Noah's Ark offers us a blueprint, simple, practical, time-tested steps by which anyone can deepen their spiritual life, weathering every storm and flourishing in the calm that follows. Imagine, for a moment, the morning after the ark has come to rest. The air is crisp with dew, carrying both the memory of destruction and the revelation of new hope. Noah, his family, and every animal step onto mud-soft earth, blinking beneath the extravagance of a rainbow. In this moment, every choice matters. Every habit, every gesture, every word becomes the foundation stones of a renewed world. The same principle holds for us. Real change is made visible in practical steps, repeated until they become the grain of our character. You might be wondering, where do I even begin? How can I carry the strength I find in crisis into the ordinary rhythm of each day? Let's follow the Ark's narrative for signposts, uncovering not just high ideals, but actionable steps for spiritual growth. Timeless, transformative, and entirely possible. Step 1. Build with obedience, not understanding. Noah's journey begins not with understanding, but with trust. Noah did everything just as God commanded him. Genesis 6:22. The process of spiritual growth is sparked when we respond to God's call, even if we don't see the whole picture. Obedience starts small, a daily quiet time, a willingness to forgive, a decision to serve others. These become the first planks of our personal arc. Ask yourself, what is one area where God is asking me to act, even if it seems illogical or unpopular? Step 2. Cultivate stillness and listening. When the windows of the ark closed, Noah's world became a cocoon, a space for listening. Spiritual growth rarely happens in noise and rush. Practice times of silence, prayer, and undistracted attention to God. Maybe it's a morning walk without headphones, or 5 minutes before sleep tuning your heart to gratitude. Remember Elijah, who found God not in earthquake or fire, but in a whisper. 1 Kings 19:12. Stillness is the training ground for trust. Step 3. Nurture faith in community. Noah didn't enter the ark alone. He took his family. Spiritual growth takes root in the soil of shared experience. Find or form a small group, prayer circle, or mentorship relationship where you can share your journey, confess struggles, and encourage one another. James exhorts, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. James 5:16. Don't walk through storms in isolation. Every healthy ark is built by many hands. Step 4. Practice perseverance in the waiting. Growth is measured not in leaps, but in endurance. Noah waited 7 days before the rain began, then 40 days and nights inside the ark, followed by months until the earth dried. The practice of perseverance, of praying when answers are delayed, of loving when it's hard, of holding on to hope when all you see is water, builds muscle into your faith. Journal your prayers and God's responses, celebrate small victories, and remember, maturity is found in the long obedience, not just flashes of inspiration. Step 5. Worship in the aftermath. The first thing Noah does after disembarking is to build an altar and worship, Genesis 8:20. True spiritual growth is marked by gratitude. Create daily rituals of thankfulness, writing a gratitude list, singing a song of praise, recognizing God's faithfulness even in storms survived. Gratitude orients your heart toward hope, opening you to the ongoing work of renewal. Step 6. Renew the covenant again and again. God's promise to never destroy the earth again by flood comes as a covenant, sealed by the rainbow. Spiritual growth flourishes when we regularly renew our own covenant with God, offering Him our allegiance, confessing our failures, and accepting His forgiveness and grace. You might create a periodic practice of recommitment, monthly communion, a yearly prayer retreat, or a family dedication. The rainbow is not just a memory, it is a living reminder that God's faithfulness outlasts every storm. Step 7. Become a builder for others. Perhaps the most radical step is to take the growth you've received and make your life an ark for someone else. Reach out to those adrift in loneliness or struggle. Build bridges by serving, listening, and sharing your story. Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. Galatians 6:2. Your story of survival, your testimony of hope, can become the plank that helps another through their own flood. This shows us something profound about spiritual maturity. It is not a static destination, but a voyage, a pattern of beginnings and renewals, of building, waiting, growing, serving, and worshipping. Every day gives us new materials, new blueprints, a chance to add another plank, to reinforce old beams, to make ready for both sunshine and storm. You might ask, what if I fail? What if my ark is unfinished, my faith too fragile for the next storm? The answer is inscribed like a watermark behind every chapter of Noah's life. God remembers. His promise rests not on flawless carpentry but on relentless grace. Just as the ark was carried on waters it could not control, your spiritual growth is carried by the one who promises, "I am with you always to the very end of the age." Matthew 28:20. But before we step outside, let the final question soak in. What happens when our renewed lives begin to ripple outward, changing not just ourselves, but entire communities? How are we called, together, to become arks and altars, places of safety, celebration and hope for the world beyond our own doors? In the next part, the mystery broadens. We move from personal transformation to collective destiny, where shared faith forges living arcs that weather the storms of our age. If you've ever wondered what it means to be part of something bigger, something world-changing, you will not want to miss what comes next. The rainbow is rising, the journey is far from over. Can you hear it beneath the clatter of daily life, the low drumbeat of longing that pulls people together, especially when the floodwaters rise? Since the dawn of the Ark, the journey of Noah and his family, humanity has been haunted by the same question. Are we alone, or are we meant to survive, indeed, to flourish, together? The story of the Ark, often viewed as an individual act of obedience, pulsates with a deeper, communal heartbeat. What happens inside those walls is not just salvation, but the forging of a living, breathing community of shared faith. Many believe that spiritual transformation is a solitary quest, a personal odyssey through trials and prayer. But the profound truth is, the real journey is always shared. In the hush of the ark's hold, in the whispers and prayers echoing through its chambers, faith became not just Noah's inheritance, but the glue that bound a family and ultimately the foundation for all generations to come. Imagine the mood inside the ark on the 29th night of rain. The pitch dark is broken only by the rise and fall of breath and the tangle of interwoven prayers. Tension swells, fears clash, tempers fray, and memories of dry land flicker like half-remembered dreams. Yet it is here, in the crucible of confinement and constant uncertainty, that the community is forged. There are tears and laughter, hope and dread, patience and exasperation. Each emotion, each sacrifice, each whispered comfort creates something more resilient than any plank or pitch. A faith built together. You might be wondering, how does the Ark's centuries-old narrative breathe new life into our fragmented, often lonely world? How can we recover the power of real community in a culture fixated on self and separation? Let's step into the contemporary Ark, the small groups, churches, and unlikely circles where strangers become family and shared faith turns adversity into something sacred. Consider a community that has weathered disaster together, a congregation opening sanctuary doors after a hurricane, or neighbors passing bread through windows in a power outage. These moments, raw and unplanned, evoke the ancient model. People banding together, holding faith, aloft above the rising tide. But the Ark teaches us more than just group survival. It describes the divine rhythm of living with others, the messy, exhilarating, often maddening dance of interdependence. Two are better than one, Ecclesiastes reminds us, because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. Ecclesiastes 4:9-12. When faith is shared, it multiplies in strength. This shows us something profound about God's design. From the first moments in Eden, through the crossing of the Red Sea, to the birth of the early church in Acts, spiritual journey is painted as a communal enterprise. In the Ark, the blueprint is clarified. Spiritual community is a covenant of weathering storms together, sharing burdens, dividing sorrows, multiplying joy. When the waters rise, no one within the ark faces the flood alone. The wisdom of the ark lives on in modern faith expressions. Think of prayer circles gathered around hospital beds where hands grasped tight become lifelines. Recovery groups where stories of pain open the door to possibility. International mission teams braving hardship for causes greater than themselves. Or consider believers gathering in secret under oppressive regimes, a modern echo of Noah's hidden hope, faith thriving even in the shadows. But let's not just romanticize community. Real ark life means facing conflict, learning patience, and forgiving 70 times 7. Noah's family surely had quarrels, fears, moments of despair. It is in the difficult conversations, the nights when belief falters, that the architecture of trust emerges. This is not blind optimism, but covenant resilience, a determination to push through the flood together rather than drift apart. You may ask, what is my place within this ark? How can I, even if unskilled or uncertain, contribute to the ark building of today? Start where you are, serve in small ways, listen quietly, show up when it matters. Each act of kindness, empathy, and spiritual honesty is another beam in the collective shelter. To be part of the ark community is not to be perfect, but to be present. Modern scientific research now affirms what the ark implied millennia ago. Shared struggle forges the strongest bonds. Psychologists call it communal resilience, the mysterious power that enables communities to rebound from crisis stronger than before. Sociologists marvel at how a single act of service ripples through neighborhoods, creating networks of support that can outlast even the harshest storms. But the ark asks more from us than just group survival. It invites us to deeper unity and openness. The doors of the real ark are flung wide, inviting strangers, the broken, the skeptic, the seeker. Think of Jesus, descended from Noah, constantly expanding his table. Here there is no Gentile or Jew, but Christ is all and is in all. Colossians 3:11. Our modern arks, be they churches, homes, or acts of mercy, are never finished. They must constantly make room for new passengers and new stories. This shows us something profound about the church, about all who ride out storms on faith. Our hope is not a private refuge, but a banner for the world. When we live in shared vulnerability and relentless welcome, the ark becomes more than legend. It becomes our shared reality. But this realization leaves one towering question still to answer, one that pulses through every act of worship, every community meal, every burden shared around the world. When at last we step from the ark into the blinding newness of a changed world, how do we carry this unity, this faith, this shared survival into the future? How do we bear witness to the transformation the storm has wrought, inviting others to believe in the possibility of joy? After sorrow, beauty after chaos, and connection after catastrophe. What comes next is both personal and infinite, a tapestry woven from stories of individual transformation and global renewal. In the next and final part, you'll encounter testimonies of lives remade by storm, hearts bound together by survival. The ancient ark voyage still echoes today. Will your story be the next plank in its lasting legacy? Stay with me. The most unforgettable chapter is about to begin. Imagine yourself standing at the newly opened door of the ark, the world before you washed clean and strange, every breath a blend of memory and dawning hope. The air itself seems thick with questions. Who have I become? Emerging from the storm. What story am I destined to tell? The true voyage of Noah's Ark does not finally conclude when dry land appears. It begins again in the hearts and lives of those who survived, who loved, who rebuilt. This is the deepest secret of the Ark. Its most powerful testimony is not measured in ancient cubits, but in the transformed stories echoing across generations. Many believe that biblical stories are reflections in a distant mirror, their lessons faded by the passing of centuries. But the profound truth is this: the Ark's journey is happening now, inside the storms we navigate, the losses we bear, the choices we make to hope and to help amid the uncertainty. Its legacy is alive in every personal voyage from chaos to covenant, from devastation to new creation. You might be wondering, how does this ancient flood intersect with the private hidden tides of my own life, my failures, my regrets, my longing for a fresh start? The answer waits in the testimonies of those whose lives, like the Ark, have been shattered and restored, pieced together by grace, obedience, and the hands of others willing to hope. Picture a woman named Alyssa. For years, her world felt like a rising deluge: addiction, shattered family, waves of guilt that threatened to swallow her whole. She often said she felt locked inside a sinking boat, unseen and unheard. But then came a community willing to become her Ark. Quietly, persistently, they brought meals, offered prayer, shared their own survivor stories. In time, Alyssa found herself afloat. The community walked beside her, through trembling recovery, helping her step by step onto new ground. "They didn't give me answers," she says now. "They gave me presence, and that gave me hope." Her story, drenched in suffering, now shimmers like a rainbow, a monument to redemption. Or listen to David, a once successful businessman whose failures left him bankrupt, alone, and bitter. The storm that overtook him wasn't physical, it was shame. Yet within the echoing emptiness, he remembered Noah, a man who trusted when there was no visible escape, who dared to build while the world laughed. David gathered his scraps of faith and began to pray, not for rescue, but for purpose in the ruins. Slowly, he joined a group of others, rebuilding lives, each storm-scarred but still clinging to possibility. "In the Ark, we aren't safe because we've earned it," he says quietly. "We're safe because God still remembers us." His scars remain, but so does his willingness to open the door for others seeking shelter. Children, too, have Ark stories. Across the world, in flooded villages, war zones, and makeshift refugee camps, children have become witnesses to hope. Clutching homemade boats, singing songs under battered roofs, some have known fear more than safety. Yet time and again, their laughter is a raft, and kindness from strangers a plank stretching to an uncertain future. Community, faith, and small acts of joy become the Ark that carries them through. And what about you? Perhaps your storm is still swirling, fear about the future, grief over loss, regrets that cling like drenched garments. The Ark calls and invites you. Will you step in, even when you cannot see the distant shore? Will you risk trusting, hoping, and allowing others to carry you through the flood? The secret the Ark reveals is this: no transformation happens in isolation. Every story of rescue is woven from 1,000 shared hands, gentle words, silent prayers, and fierce promises kept in darkness. This shows us something profound about God's way of working. He does not only part seas or silence storms. More often, he joins us inside the Ark, sharing our fear, whispering hope, sending doves to remind us the end is near. The real miracle is the survival and rebirth of ordinary lives changed by extraordinary faith. Personal reflection is the compass here. How has your greatest pain become an unexpected launching point for compassion? When did someone find you adrift and draw you into the safety of their care? What old, rain-soaked chapter is finished now, and what new ground waits for you to claim it rainbow overhead? Just as the Ark preserved more than animals and people, it preserved stories, memory, promise. Every generation must tell its own Ark chronicle. There are planks to be built today, wounds ready to be healed, confessions to whisper, songs to raise above the storm. Imagine feeling the gentle weight of this truth. Your story could become the shelter for someone else's flood, your scars, the lines of hope inscribed on a new covenant. And this is the greatest paradox. Many believe that spiritual transformation is the end of pain, the arrival on a cloudless shore. But the profound truth is, it is the beginning. A new way of living marked by vulnerability, courageous community, and a calling to shelter others. The world will storm again, but your ark, your life, your faith, your actions can shield, surprise, and inspire. What happens next is up to you. Where do you sense the floodwaters rising, and who has God placed beside you to weather them? What plank can you add today, no matter how small, to your own ark or to someone else's? Where will you build, and who will you shelter? The next testimony is waiting to be written, perhaps yours. And yet, as every survivor of the ark soon learned, the rainbow did not mark a return to normal. It was a signal the world had changed, and they with it. What if you too are stepping into a new world, carrying an ancient promise? What if your flood, the one you feared would drown you, becomes the very wave that lifts you into the life you were created for? Let that question linger, quietly thunderous, because the ark's truest voyage is unending, always opening, always inviting us out, into a dawn radiant with the possibility that nothing is ever wasted. Not the wood, not the storm, not your story. Keep watching, keep building, and above all, keep hoping. The rest of your ark story begins today. As you arrive at this final moment in our journey, standing where storm and promise meet, it's time to breathe in the full scope of the story we've explored together. The real story of Noah's Ark. Bible truths and scientific insights has not simply revisited an ancient vessel or sifted the silt beneath historical floods. It has drawn you, plank by plank, into a revelation that bridges past, present, and future. Pause for a moment and recognize how far you've come. You have sailed with Noah through judgment and mercy, wrestled with the possibility of history and miracle entwined, discovered the ark's blueprint for spiritual growth, and heard the echo of its hope in personal and collective stories still unfolding today. Now we can clearly see that Noah's Ark is far more than myth, and far more than a tale for children's murals. When we bring all these truths together, a divine warning, a painstaking obedience, a shelter in chaos, a covenant beaming from the clouds, we witness how the ark is a living metaphor for every season of crisis we face, every moment of decision, every relationship tested by the waters of life, each detail in Genesis, each chord struck by ancient and modern floods, and each testimony of survival and transformation composes a divine symphony, a great rescue at the heart of human experience. This is the pattern revealed across the centuries. Judgment is never the end where God is concerned. The flood that threatened to reduce the world to silence became the platform for an even greater promise. A covenant that rippled outward through the stories of Israel and the church, reaching the edges of science and the lives of everyday people like you and me. Imagine finally seeing the entire divine tapestry, the ark, not as a relic lost to time, but as a beam of hope, sturdy enough to carry us all through every kind of storm. As we ascend this spiritual summit together, the emotional crescendo lifts. The ark is God's fierce and tender answer to fear, to evil, to human frailty and longing. In the chaos of a world that so often feels like it is coming unmoored, the narrative rises. We are not meant to face the deluge alone. We are called to be rescued and to become rescuers, to receive the covenant and to extend it, to find shelter and to build it for others. I think of the tear-streaked faces inside the ark, Noah soaked with faith as much as rain, his family clinging to one another and to hope. I think of modern arks, storm-battered families sharing food after a hurricane, strangers gathering hands to pray, addicts finding grace through the patient presence of community. The ark is never just a thing of wood and pitch. It is every moment you choose compassion over cynicism. Every day you dare to start building. While the world laughs every time you step into the unknown with trembling hope. Many live in fear, paralyzed by the storm, but you're invited to step into the ark, to be part of a lineage that refuses to let despair have the final word. Many settle for floating, numbed by the waves, but you are called to build, to endure, and then to open your doors wide to others, longing for safety and belonging. Imagine how your life would change if you truly saw every challenge as an invitation to trust, to persevere, to become a place of refuge for those around you. So what does this mean for your daily life? This is the moment to cross from insight to transformation, from surviving the flood to changing the world beyond the waters. Here are 4 spiritual steps to anchor your journey. First, choose obedience even in uncertainty. Start building with what you have, where you are, trusting that each act of faith draws you closer to God's shelter. It's not about understanding every detail, but saying yes to the next plank. When you begin to obey in the small things, you unlock big miracles. Second, root yourself in community. Seek others who will ride out storms with you, who will pray, grieve, celebrate, and rebuild by your side. Reach out to strengthen bonds and create new ones. When you begin to share your burdens, you'll discover the ark was never a solo voyage. Third, nurture a habit of gratitude and worship, especially after the rain. Start and end each day by naming a few ways you've seen God's faithfulness or beauty, even in hard times. When you begin to thank God for every rainbow, you'll begin to see rainbows everywhere. Fourth, become an ark builder for others. Look for those who are battered by waves, the lonely, the anxious, the wandering, and offer them room in your life, your prayers, your time. When you begin to shelter others, you become living proof of the covenant God made with Noah and all generations. This is God's moment for you, the threshold between mere listening and brave new action. The ark is not confined to the past, nor to some far-off heaven. It is a call written into today's very storms. Will you make your life a vessel of hope, your home a safe harbor, your heart a place where others can survive and flourish? Draw this journey into the light of community now. Share your story in the comments below. What storms have you survived? When have you felt rescued or become someone else's ark? How has God shown up for you, and how are you being called to build for someone else? Your voice could become the very plank another viewer needs. Remember, your interaction, your sharing, your prayers, your story could be another rainbow shining across someone's sky. If this exploration has moved you or unveiled new questions, don't miss the coming videos. Ahead are even deeper truths, new intersections of faith and science, new testimonies of hope, new answers for the storms yet to come. Join this Ark community, subscribe, share, and bring others into this unfolding sanctuary. And now, as the waves still and the clouds part, let one truth echo in your spirit. The Ark may have rested on Ararat, but true hope sails on, carried in every heart that trusts, endures, and dares to begin again. You are not defined by the storm, but by the covenant. You are not alone. You are remembered. Build, shelter, hope, repeat. Let those words settle and stir. Build, shelter, hope, repeat. The flood will come, but the rainbow always rises. May you hear its promise in every storm you face, today, tomorrow, and forever.